Another 2 points thrown away today for Wolves, and let's speak about the game because it really was a frustrating game of football. Now, the first half, I've got so many things to talk about. I thought it was a really interesting half of football. Now, I thought Wolves were really good. Now, that might seem mad because here in Brighton had all of the ball, but that seemed to be the game plan. Brighton are always going to want a lot of the ball. Wolves soaked up the pressure really well, I thought. And Manetzi, I thought he was really good in the first half, and my opinion on Manetzi, I don't think he offers a hell of a lot, but obviously he draws a good foul from Dunk, ultimately gets the goal, I suppose, if you can count it as a Manetzi goal. They have obviously counted it as an own goal, because it is, but obviously, without his strike, it doesn't go in. I was really impressed with Andre and Joao Gomez throughout the match, to be honest. I just thought they were absolutely brilliant, and they just are every week, aren't they? Let's be honest. I mean, obviously, both Brazilian internationals, both, to be fair, Brazil's two best midfielders on form, in my personal opinion, for the actual national team, and generally been absolutely brilliant. I thought Bueno and Krejci, especially in that first half, were really good. Krejci throughout the game really impressed me. Bueno, again, some of his passing towards the end of the game was pretty poor, but I thought in general, the whole game, wayward passes, especially that last 5 minutes, that added time, I thought it was dreadful. The quality, or the lack thereof, to be honest, was pretty poor. But in terms of the actual ball playing from the defenders, stepping into midfield, getting on the ball, making things happen, I think they did really well. There was a move where Bueno fires the ball through the lines into Larsson. Larsson flicks it, and that is where Manetzi obviously draws the foul from Dunk, so I was really impressed with him. Arias was a strange performance because I really was quite impressed with him in the first half. Not, all action, but I was impressed with him. I mean, Krejci, again, I could speak about him all day. Chachua is one of them. It's such a strange performance because I think he plays really well. He absolutely pockets Minte. Let's get that right. He absolutely pockets Yankuba Minte, and it's not an easy task at all. One of the more dangerous wingers in this league, in my personal opinion. He's electric. And obviously, we all know Jackson Chachua is electric as well. And I think he did really, really well against him. My only frustration with Chachua is that he didn't have that willingness to go forward, didn't back himself enough to go forward, especially in that first half. I thought he looked a bit, I wouldn't say scared, but I don't think he, backed himself enough to go on and take it past a player or continue driving with the ball. And there was, a few groans from the crowd, and rightly so, because it is frustrating when that happens and there's no real sort of desire really to go forward. It's a really frustrating one. But again, Wolves didn't take too many risks, and they didn't need to in that first half. It was a really impressive first half performance, in my opinion. The second half is where it gets frustrating because ultimately Wolves didn't keep the ball anywhere near well enough. I think the subs, if I'm being completely honest, killed the game. Now that might seem crazy given the fact that Larsson looked shattered when he before he come off. Obviously gets that sort of break where he hits the post really well as well, and just generally he looked knackered throughout the game, so I would have actually taken him off. I think taking Wang off was the right decision. I don't think Wang did a hell of a lot, which might sound mad because I know he has obviously drawn a few fouls and got a few yellow cards for Brighton, but I don't actually think he performed that well. I think his final ball's dreadful, and we've seen that from Wang for as long as we can possibly remember now, really. I think the confusing thing about the Hwang substitution was the fact that he brings Agbadu on, goes to a back five. Now, obviously, it's not Vitor Pereira who does it. Obviously, he would have had input. But, it's a frustrating one going to a five. It felt like, especially in that 60th minute onwards, Wolves were just like, do you know what? We'll settle for a draw here, or we'll settle for a 1-0 win and try and hold on. And ultimately, they've ended up in the draw, and it's frustrating because it is 2 points dropped, and Wolves can't afford to be dropping points in the last two games in the way that they have, as well as they have played. Now, the last few minutes, as I say, were just really, really poor in terms of quality. Passes were poor. The balls in were poor. The touches were poor. I thought Agbadu, don't get me wrong, I don't think he was bad. And I think it's easy to say he was bad because he has been so far this season. But I don't think his sub helped the game. I would have stayed with the back four, and Wolves should have gone on and tried to go 2-0 up and then ultimately maybe put him on and play at a 5. But I would have taken Hwang off earlier, but I would have taken him off for a different player perhaps. So it was a frustrating one, a really, really weird sort of game of football. There's a lot of things that I didn't enjoy about the game, a lot of things I did enjoy, a lot of positives again to take from it, but ultimately Wolves should have had 6 points from the last two Premier League games, and they have ultimately ended up with 2. And this is the exact worry why I make it abundantly clear I don't want to see Wolves go down. I really don't. I like Wolves. Obviously, I wouldn't, have most of my channel dedicated to Wolves if I didn't. But in games like that, when you see other teams around like Sunderland doing well, Burnley have done okay. I still think they'll be nailed on to go down. Sunderland done well. Leeds have done well. I just think it's going to be really, really, really tough now from here on out for Wolves to stay in the Premier League. And that's not me writing them off. I do hope they stay up, and I do think there is a chance they stay up. But just because of the results in and around them and stuff like that, I think it's very, very, very tough. And it is a big, big ask. So I really want to hear your opinions on that in the comments as well. But let's break down the game from a sort of, not a tactical perspective, but let's look at sort of general consensus instead of just hearing my thoughts as well. In terms of the game and the goal was really frustrating for numerous reasons, to be honest. I think Brighton's goal is just unbelievably bad. Sam Johnstone has every right to be fuming, to be honest. I think Tuchel does so well throughout the game. And then one moment of lack of concentration ultimately leads to a corner. And then his lack of concentration leads to the ball being swung in from where he's not, switched on. Van Hecker with a brilliant header. And as you can see, you can't say Brighton didn't deserve it in terms of, when you look at the stats, it makes it look like Brighton have absolutely dominated Wolves. And I completely agree. On the ball, they have. Of course, they have. Brighton were always going to come and have loads of the ball, as I previously mentioned. But in terms of as a performance and as a team, I think Wolves played really well, if I'm being honest. And I think it's a really frustrating one and a gut-wrenching one, to be quite honest, to take. And as I say, I think in terms of the aggression, I think in terms of everything you want to see from Wolves being down there, I don't think you can complain. I think the aggression was there. I think the temperament was there. I think the pressing was there, especially Jean Arias. I thought he pressed extremely well. And I think generally the desire was there. That you can't fault any of those issues around that result. But it is the fact, again, that Wolves have ultimately lost 2 points. And it is frustrating. If Wolves play like that in every game, there is a very, very good chance that they do stay in this division, but it's just the teams in and around them doing too much that is really, really concerning for me. I mean, Nottingham Forest could go down, to be quite honest, with bloody Ange Postecoglou, the way they've been playing this season. But as I say, it's a frustrating one to take, and I really want to hear your opinions on it, because I do think, again, it's one of them. Wolves need those points ultimately at home. A team in the relegation zone and as far adrift as Wolves are already need to be getting those points at home, need to be getting as maximum points as you can at home, and ultimately they haven't now. Of course, the atmosphere was flat. There was a lot of empty seats at the ground, of course, as well, and generally it wasn't, it hasn't been a bouncing atmosphere, and it's not going to be when you're down there. It just isn't. We've seen it at the Molineux numerous times, especially in League One, stuff like that. The atmosphere's not been ridiculously unbelievable for the last few years either, to be quite honest. So it's one of them. It's a really tough one to take. I think Wolves will be fine. If I had to put it down, I think Wolves will be fine, because that's mainly, to do with hope, to be honest. I think more than anything. But I do worry about the other teams in and around them, to be honest. It's a big, big concern. Now, I know this video is very repetitive, and it is very frustrating for me to do this video, because I really want to talk about how well Wolves played, and they really did play so well, especially in that first half. But yeah, it's a really, really, really tough one. Now, as you can see here, I mean, all the stats lead to Brighton, really, other than the tackles. I thought Wolves were brilliant in the tackle, to be honest. The clearances is the most interesting stat here. I mean, over double the clearances. And again, for that, it was just, I mean, for 40 minutes of that second half, it was, the ball comes into the Wolves box, they're sitting there, deep as a 5, and it gets hoofed to no one. Brighton come again in waves, come again. And with a team like Brighton, it's only going to happen one way. They can, they're going to keep coming at you, and eventually that is going to falter, and that wall will break down, and ultimately it has broken down today, and it's a really, really tough one to take for many people, to be honest. So I think most of you will be proud of the performance, and rightly so. I completely agree. You should be proud of that performance. Second half, tactically so poor. And I do want to just quickly speak about Vitor Pereira. Now, I didn't actually see what he did. You couldn't really tell on TV, to be honest. I think he may have kicked a bottle or done something like that, but obviously he gets a red card. It's a stupid red card. It's unneeded. Obviously, people were not fuming at him. In the ground, he got quite a decent reception, even though he went off. But it's just a needless thing. Again, when you're down there and your manager's doing stuff like that, for me personally, I think it's a bit trivial, and I think it's a bit ridiculous. Now, I want to hear your opinions on the game, because as I've said, it is a really frustrating one to take. It's a tough one to take. I really do hope Wolves are fine. I really do think they could be fine. It's just the teams that are in and around them that they can't control that I'm concerned about. Now, thank you all for watching this video. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments, because, like I say, it is a gut-wrenching one, to be quite honest. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you ahead of the next game.